Do 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 do. All right. Hope you guys all start pouring in here. Getting started shortly here. We're just starting the stream early. Go ahead and pour in, guys. And it's the last day to take advantage of code Jason Stratham for 50% off marketcipher.com. Stream starting soon. What's up, Crypto Eagle? First guy in the chat. We're going to let some people pour in, but we're looking at an 8 o'clock start. So get your drinks, get situated. We're going to jump into these Heikin-Ashi candlesticks, and I'll do a formal intro in a little bit. But let me go grab a drink and do some posts while our people show up to class here. So good to have you guys in, and I'll be right back. Okay. See who we got in the chats here. Oh, okay. Alex Crypto, good to see you in, man. Dragonhawk, Diano, Crypto, Tattoo Destroyer, The Future, Doom User. Good to see all you guys in. No fancy music today. Just me and my Petey the Pencil Neck mug here. Feels a little weird, a little naked without music and rain and stuff, but good to have you guys in. Man, so CF has been on an absolute tear, closing back-to-back six-figure P&L trades in the last few weeks, and he put out this code, Jason Stratham, which is still active. We pushed it one more day, so if you want to get in on NickCipher for 50% off, you guys can use code Jason Stratham, and you'll get our private Discord, which comes with that, which has our entire NickCipher community in it. But man, this code seriously popped off with the way CF has been trading. And first of all, props to our support staff for getting everyone through the door, getting everyone connected. We haven't had any refunds or chargebacks or anything like that. So shout out to them. Shout out to my brother CF for absolutely murdering it. But we did just get like 400 plus new members. So that's a lot of new people that are potentially going to be watching this. And so we got to kind of go over some of the basics, guys. And I have real trade examples of my Fartcoin trades over the last week that I'm going to show you guys. How I use the Heikin-Ashi candles, the same candles that my brother CryptoFace uses. So it's good to have you guys in the chat, new and old. Mostly just my fans and OGs, but everyone else will trickle in next couple days and rewatch this. So anyone who watches this next couple days, thank you as well. Definitely smash the like and subscribe for more FloppingGroper educational content. But yeah, so there's NickCipher. You can get that with the code Jason Stratham there. I also have my own. I'm a successful trader myself, so I have my own trading VIP. You can click this and it brings you to my WAP, and I try to charge like a low amount so that you can kind of just get it as like an add-on to your NickCipher subscription. But I do have my own trading Discord that I post setups in, and I use VWAP as my, ironically, this website is called WAP, and I use VWAP, but I like that. So, but yeah, so we're going over the Heikin-Ashi here. So Heikin-Ashi candles, you know, they were invented by this guy, Munehisa Homa, in the 1700s. Now, the Japanese invented traditional candlesticks as well. So the Japanese not only invented regular candlesticks, but also these Heikin-Ashi candles. They look a little bit different than regular candles. What you're looking at here is the Heikin-Ashi as compared to standard candles. Standard candles give you that exact data. They tell you the exact open, high, low, and close of a given period, whether that be the 10-minute or the 1 hour or the 1 day. And so they are very useful. There's also a lot of traditional candlestick patterns that you can learn, like dojis, shooting stars, three black crows, all that stuff. So that stuff can be useful, but Heikin-Ashi really simplifies everything, man. Now, we do have some new people, so and oftentimes the simplest things can be the most difficult to master. But when it comes down to it, Heikin-Ashi is real easy, so this is not going to be that long of a class. I'm just going to cover basically like the 3 stages that a Heikin-Ashi that the Heikin-Ashi candles can find themselves in. What candles do you actually fire off trades on? How do you place the trades around these points in the market? And I'll give you some real life examples here. So, man, the chat's pretty quiet because everyone's just showed up to class, man. Class is in session. So thanks for letting me go on a tangent here. But yeah, we'll just jump right into it. So on Fartcoin, we're looking at Fartcoin here. There's different types. There's levels to this Heikin-Ashi business. So the candle that I love to see on a Heikin-Ashi is this one right here. So do you see how there's no bottom wick to this candle? This is what I call a momentum candle. It goes up and down. So when it's an up candle, you'll see no wick below. And when it's a down candle, you'll see no wick on top. Now, sometimes you get a couple red candles in a row without seeing a momentum candle. It's a little bit random, a little bit different every time. And sometimes you get false signals. Look at this momentum candle that completely failed and turned around and would have stopped you out. So Heikin-Ashi candles in and of themselves are not a trading strategy. They are simply a way to tell you when to fire off the trade. They help you pull the trigger, kind of like NickCipher. You almost don't even want to base a trade solely around the waves down below here or the candlestick that you're seeing. You want to look at your key support and resistance levels, whether that be horizontal support and resistance or dynamic support and resistance, such as VWAPs, or psychological support and resistance, such as like a whole number or something like that. But you want to form a trading idea using the support and resistance that you have available, and then you look to the Heikin-Ashi and you wait for that momentum candle to print to fire off the trade. Just like how you would look at NickCipher, is NickCipher looking in such a way that this trade makes sense? So that's how I use Heikin-Ashi to assist with the actual firing off, triggering of the trade. So, when you see a momentum candle like this, the way that you set the trade up is you grab your short tool, you wait for the candle to close, first of all, because you don't want to front run. You want to wait for that candle to actually confirm. So you're going to be entering here at the close of that first momentum candle. You're going to go ahead and put the stop loss behind that swing high. And I get that, highs and lows get taken all the time. You get stopped out of stuff. This is the game we play, but you have to put that stop somewhere. And so we're going to put the stop loss right above that swing high. And the first take profit, like an auto TP level that I recommend with like Heikin-Ashi, is the 2-to-1. So that would be around this point right here. Now this just so happens to be the bottom here where you totally should have taken all your profits off the table. But not all setups look like this. Sometimes it goes further, sometimes it gets cut short. But a good rule of thumb is whatever trade setup you craft using Heikin-Ashi, look at the risk reward from the entry to the swing high or low. And whenever you get to 2-to-1, that's probably when you should at least take 1/3 to 1/2 the trade off the table. If it keeps going in your favor, that's great. But this way you cover your risk and you see a lot more wins and you don't get round tripped as much. So TPing at 2-to-1 is a good, safe risk management strategy to employ, or it's rules like that that make your strategy a real trading strategy, is what I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, so that's basically how you place a trade setup here. So I'll give you guys a couple other examples here of places where we find momentum candles. And I'll show you good examples and bad examples. But look, so this was a good one here on the 1 hour. You place the long trade there as soon as that momentum candle closes. And it seems far away, but you do have to place that stop loss behind that swing. And that means you got to risk accordingly. So you would measure this up. Where's my 2-to-1? It's right there. Got you. And look, it comes down and it scares you a little bit. It comes down and it tests down in there. It almost looks like a bad trade, but you have to trust that stop loss. And it does eventually come up to around that 2-to-1 level where you could have potentially taken some profits at this important VWAP here. So your support and resistance and everything else you're looking at will assist you in the profit-taking process. But just as a rule of thumb, that 2-to-1 risk-reward ratio is a good benchmark to do your TP at. And you can see that this trade played out pretty good there. What's another one here? Look at this nice high right here. Now, there's good examples and bad examples. So, you could find an example of a momentum candle that duds out. But I'm just showing you guys like what's possible with the good ones real quick. You do the 2-to-1 setup right here. And look at that. That actually plays out pretty dang good right there. Now, this is the 1 hour chart. This is a fairly large time frame. you know? So, I mean, you could go into smaller time frames, but in the smaller time frames, you're going to see some of the drawbacks of Heikin-Ashi, which are that these candles are not the actual open, high, low, and close of the candle. So if I go into like the 1 minute chart here, I actually am a fan of scalping with Heikin-Ashi, but you just have to be mindful of the calculation. And let me tell you the calculation right here. So a typical candle, the open, high, low, and close are just like it just is what it is. It's the raw data with those standard candles. But Heikin-Ashi is a complex, or rather, it's a simple calculation, but it has a complex meaning behind it. Heikin-Ashi means average pace in Japanese. And so what these are is an average of the trend designed to keep you in trends longer and cut out the noise. So you'll have an elevated chance of calling the direction of a trend with Heikin-Ashi. In fact, like 75% of the time, if you go along with the Heikin-Ashi, you're going to be correct. And so it's a lot more accurate than standard candles at gauging the actual direction of the market. But you just have to be mindful that the open is not the actual open of that period. The open of a Heikin-Ashi, which in this little red candle right here, sorry, that's the close, but the open would be the top of the body for a red candle. The open is actually the open and high of the previous candle divided by 2. And so what Heikin-Ashi does is it basically puts each new candle at the midpoint of the previous. So it's not the average of the high and low. It doesn't average the wick high and the wick low. It's averaging the body of the previous candle. So this value plus this value equals this value. So that does a good job of smoothing the trend out for you, but you do miss out on the exactitude of the standard candle. Now, the wicks on a Heikin-Ashi are, in fact, the high and the low. So the wicks are going to be accurate, but the thing is that the close really screws your market orders up on the scalp timeframes here. We're on the 1 minute chart here. And the problem is the close, where the body of a Heikin-Ashi candle is it's like what is it? It's the open high, it's the candlestick high, the candlestick low, the body high and the body low all averaged basically. So the actual body is not the actual accurate close of the candle. And so when you're on like the 1 minute chart and a trade all of a sudden starts going against you, it's the wick that you got to watch. Like you'll be in like let's say you're just degen trading, you're like on a 20x short and you're riding this downtrend, you're just hoping a spear doesn't come and screw you over. Like I've been there, man. Trust me. Like you're just flopping and groping and you're on Heikin-Ashi candles. All of a sudden you'll see a wick, not the body, as you would with standard candles, but a wick will come up and stop you out. That's because the wicks of a Heikin-Ashi are the true high of that session, but the body is an average. And so you're waiting for that Heikin-Ashi body to come up, but that's not what's going to happen. The wick is going to come up, and it gives this illusion that you can still get out of that short at a good price, but then when you market exit that short, you get absolutely wrecked because the price that you are exiting your short at is actually much, much higher than you imagine. So tell me in the chat, has that ever happened to you guys? You were trading on the 1 minute chart on Heikin-Ashi and it starts going against you and you panic exit the position only to find out that you got absolutely wrecked because it was the wick that got you, not the body. Whereas on standard candles, you know, if the price starts pumping on you, you'll see the actual thick part of the candle pumping on you. And you know that that is the price that you are going to be closing your trade on. Whereas the Heikin-Ashi, like I said, the close is a complex average of all the values in the candlestick. Man, I hope I explained that right, bro. But just know that on like the 1 minute chart, the Heikin-Ashi can kind of spear you like it'll gut you like a pig and you don't even know it, man. You don't even know it. So yeah. Now, there is a version of Heikin-Ashi if you like the exact data from your regular candlesticks and you can't do without them and you don't want to get speared like a pig. I did find an indicator called SHA, Smooth Heikin-Ashi. So you go into your indicators and you search Smooth Heikin-Ashi. Go and star that. It's by this guy, the backtest guy. And you can customize it a little bit. You can go into the settings and it has a default length of 10. I like to kind of reduce it all the way to 1 because it makes it a little more accurate to me. But what this is going to do is it's going to kind of create a Heikin-Ashi shadow that ebbs and flows around the traditional candlesticks for you. And this is going to give you the benefits of the Heikin-Ashi. Like you'll know that moment when the Heikin-Ashi flips, right? But you'll still have the exact data from the standard candles to go off of. So if you are not a fan of Heikin-Ashi, use this indicator instead, and that way you get the benefits of the Heikin-Ashi while still retaining the exactitude of the standard candles. Or you could do what I do, and I actually use Heikin-Ashi with this smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator, and they actually work pretty good together because it's a smooth Heikin-Ashi. So it's not only do you have the smoothness of the regular Heikin-Ashi, but you also have this additional indicator to give you that additional backup in your trade. And it gives you these follow-up indications that are real nice. Let me go back to the 1 hour, back to that, let's see here. Man, let me show you guys an actual example of a real trade that we actually took. I'm going to show you guys a couple, actually, because I've been on fire with this fart coin here. Okay, we'll do this short here. So fart coin, super far from the weekly VWAP, daily bearish leapfrog. That's when it dumps from the new period to the last period. I call that a leapfrog. But you can see that daily VWAP, previous daily VWAP. So it looked like we were going to dump from the VWAP, that day's VWAP, to yesterday's VWAP. And then that could have been a springboard for a larger dump down to the weekly VWAP. And so this was a big trading idea that I put out on Fartcoin. And I waited for a moment. I was thinking about it this whole time, but it was a momentum candle that got me in. So let me find that here. Let me find that high on Fartcoin. It was this candle right here. This candle right here. So you're waiting. Let me get that first momentum. On the first momentum candle I see, I'm going to fire off the signal for my VIP. And so this is how I put the signal out for my VIP. I'm giving you guys the sauce. Hopefully you guys don't start your own trading VIPs and take all my clients away and make all the money without me. I hope that you come back tomorrow and you don't need me. But either way, you know, even though what I'm teaching you here is bad for business, and I want you guys eating out of the palm of my hands, I think this is the right thing to do to teach you guys. So we placed the entry right on the close of that Heikin-Ashi candle, and we put the stop loss right behind the swing high. We immediately look, what is a 2-to-1? Looks like a 2-to-1 is about right down here. Now, I was targeting that previous weekly VWAP all the way down here. We didn't get there. We actually came up, and look, we've tested the highs not once, but twice so far in this larger bearish idea that I put out. But either way, this is a huge move on Fartcoin, so there was plenty of time to take profits. I mean, look at this move, guys. This is a 12% move. First, it was a 5% move, and then it washed everyone out, but our position stayed intact. And then from that point, if you shorted this point, because at this point right here, you technically could have re-entered the short with a small stop right behind that other candle back here, and your risk reward would have been insane. I didn't do that because that would have been nuts, but either way, the trade reconfirms again on this candle here. So you put like your stop behind that swing high, it reconfirms again, and you get some additional follow through there. So what was this move right here? That was a 17% move on Fartcoin right there. And it comes up, and even though it's come up, the tap of the previous weekly VWAP hasn't happened yet. So I'm basically still in this idea, and we re-entered short today on this Fartcoin. But that was an example of like a real Heikin-Ashi based trade setup that played out recently. You see the black, the candle turned black on my smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator right on that momentum candle right there. So that was a real nice setup there. And sometimes this wick right here does come up and it stops you out. You know, it's like you have to make sure that that what you're risking in these trades is actually an amount that you are okay with losing. Like if you have a $10,000 account and you just enter right here on that, you are pretty far from the high on Fartcoin. You're 7% from the high on Fartcoin. So, you know, if you're in a 10x, 20x leverage trade, this is a huge loss that you are taking if your sizing is not being kept. You gotta keep your sizing in check, and just remember that, like, if you get stopped out, what are you gonna lose? What's the most you're willing to lose? I shouldn't have to tell you guys this because you guys all should be traders, but for the new people who just picked up NickCipher, who maybe are new to trading, just make sure that you're not treating each of these plays like it's the big one. You could always get stopped out at any time. This is just a framework for placing trades. But let me go to the next example here. So right after this trade, oh look, so look, we did come down substantially on that Fartcoin move, but then a new daily VWAP appeared. This VWAP right here had appeared, and I think I was on the 10-minute chart. Yep, I was right here. So this was a tough trade to hold on to, guys, not gonna lie. I'll show you guys this setup here. So we're coming down, we're coming down, we're coming down. But look, see the green line here? This was a new daily candle that had just printed. And if I place a VWAP on the previous day, which was back here, look how far we had run from the daily VWAP. And so naturally, I'm looking, what's the distance? Holy crap, 11% just to retrace back up to yesterday's VWAP. That's a crazy move. So I went ahead and placed a trade and felt good enough about it to post in the VIP. I went ahead and entered the long right here on that first momentum candle, and I put the stop behind the swing low, and I called the first TP very shortly after, right at this point right here. There was a couple points in this trade where it got a little hairy, and you know, we take our first TP, and then it got hairy again. It comes up, hits our VWAP target. That could have been a point where you fully closed the position. Look, it comes back down, and it gets hairy again. You know, if you basically enter late, this trade is like destroying you mentally, going up and down all over. You had to jump into this like at the start and set your stop behind that low, because each one of these swings to the downside would have wrecked anybody who went long late. So yeah, it gets hairy at this point, but look, it goes even higher. It went even higher there. So crazy, man. Let me show you the next trade. So this one, I woke up today, I was drinking my morning coffee, and I love how no one in the chat's saying anything. That's what I love to see. Instead of a bunch of people, a bunch of hooligans gooning around, having a good time, we're taking notes. I like to see that shit. Do a little pencil emoji in the chat if you're taking notes right now. And just let me know that you guys are alive. You know what I'm saying? Like the stream. We're having a good time, man. We're having a good time. But check out this next trade setup here. So I really wanted to short Fartcoin this morning. In fact, look at NickCipher B. NickCipher B was giving me a red dot. We were at some VWAP resistance. You see that, like, we're at that daily VWAP. I'm seeing the pencils in the chat, by the way. Thank you. Thank you. But, you know, when, you know, just because you want to short doesn't, just because I sat down at the computer and Groper wants to short doesn't mean it's time to short. You have to wait for confirmation. So confirmation for me is that first momentum candle. And so look, I had a little follow-up. First, I said shorting Fartcoin down to the weekly VWAP because it never officially hit it on that first push down with a stop behind the swing high. But then I put a little note out. I said, I'm on the 10-minute here. I need to see the momentum candle print first. Now, when we go on the chart, we were right here at that moment. We were right here, and that VWAP went away because my indicator only shows the last 2 daily VWAPs. But let me put that VWAP back on the chart here. Perfect. So we were right at this VWAP resistance here, but because I was prudent, because I was waiting for that first red momentum candle, I did not get speared by this upward divergent messed up move that happened here. And so right as I saw the first momentum candle, which caught me by surprise, by the way, I was like on the phone with my mom handling business, and like I checked the charts and I was like, holy crap. I hung up on my mom. I said, I gotta go, because the first red momentum candle had just printed, and it was a nice one too. Look how volatile and nice and long schlong. That's a schlonger. That's a big red dildo. And the size of the Heikin-Ashi, the size of the spear that guts the pig is a very strong indication of the size of the overall move that's about to take place. Not all the time. Sometimes you get a big Heikin-Ashi spear, and then the move that follows after is a little sideways bullshit move. But most of the time, it's if you get a big spear like this, it's a big move. And so we place a trade. We had already dumped quite a ways, guys. So it was tough placing this trade. But you put your enter right there. You put your stop loss behind the swing high, and it gets you looking down. You got to look for that 2-to-1 right there. Okay, that's your 2-to-1. And so I've already taken profits on this fart coin trade here. It's got a ways to go. Look, it's still got a ways to go to that previous weekly VWAP. And we're still in that trade. I'll show you guys that trade right over here on the breakout account. Check it out. So this is the trade. So you can see that it had dumped quite a ways on the small time frames before I entered. You see my entry right here? But that's the price you got to pay for exactitude. When I enter a trade, I don't want to get speared like a pig. I want to wait for a trend to establish itself so that when I enter the trade, it doesn't have that much drawdown. Now, if you're someone who's on your last $250 of your funded account to risk, and like you're asking me, FloppingGroper, how do I save this account? Heikin-Ashi is a really good tool to do that, because by nature, Heikin-Ashi is able to help you isolate those strong trends where the candles don't even, there isn't even a top wick on the top of the candle. So you're riding a very strong trend in a given direction. And so if you're on your last $100, you should probably, however you trade on your last $100, you should probably trade like that all the time. Let's be real. Instead of waiting till you're at your last $100 to get your act in order. But yeah, so you can see that I don't try to catch the top. I wait for confirmation with that 10-minute. I use the 10-minute. You could use any time frame you want. I just noticed on cryptos, the 10-minute and the 1 hour are some good time frames to base your Heikin-Ashi ideas around. The 5-minute is a little bit, that gets a little iffy on the 5-minute. Other time frames may work too, but I would recommend in this official class that the 10-minute and the 1 hour are some real good places to start. But you can see here that we entered late. I even FOMO'd in. I entered another fart coin short. This is a stupid trade that I took here. It's only playing out because this move's going straight down. So this entry here could get speared like a pig, but I'm not perfect, man. Sometimes I make little exceptions, but my TP's down here at that weekly VWAP there, so hopefully that hits. So I put out some other calls today too. I put out a Ripple short. So this is the Ripple short. Same idea, different chart. You can see that Ripple never went back down to its previous weekly VWAP. So, that may sound like alien language to some of you guys. You don't got to learn VWAPs. Just apply the Heikin-Ashi entry and exit strategy, like the placing of the actual trades. You can apply this to any support and resistance. Just embed it into your strategy. And I don't want you to change your entire strategy and just start doing what I'm doing and going ham on this and betting all your money, thinking that my strategies is what you need to do. It's the Heikin-Ashi that I want you to pay attention to in this stream. So everything else, is may sound like alien language, but I had an idea that price was going to go down here. I just needed the Heikin-Ashi to get me in it. So We go to XRP real quick. Tommy Chow says, what time zone is your TV chart in? UTC time, just regular UTC time. FD White says he uses the 15-minute and the 1 hour. That's another great combination. The Future says, good advice. Thank you, man. Top Motion says, for your anchored VWAP, what source/anchor point do you use under the VWAP settings? That's not really the topic of the video, but whenever I place a VWAP, I like to go into the settings, and the creator of anchored VWAP recommends OHLC4 for your candlestick source. But yeah, so we have this Ripple trade here. Now, instead of the 10-minute, this was based on the 1 hour chart. So Ripple had just gotten its first 1 hour momentum candle. We hadn't gotten the black Heikin-Ashi from our smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator yet, but I was willing to take that risk. So the trade I placed in the VIP, you enter right there on that candle closure. You put your stop loss behind the swing high. You target 2 to 1. And we're pretty much hit there. So I had my first TP on Ripple already. And I'm just hoping that it doesn't hit my stop and it goes down to that previous weekly VWAP. Since it is Monday today, it's the start of a new weekly trading session, a new weekly candle. I think it's a safe bet that we retrace down and we hit that previous weekly VWAP. Let's see. Chain XBT says, take every trade like it's your last $100. Yes, sir. It's a good rule to go by. AZTV says, I love the 30-minute and the 2 hour. That's another great combination. The Unknown says, just joining in. Thank you for coming in, man. We're going over real trade setups that I've provided in my VIP group using Heikin-Ashi candles, embedding the candles into my already existing strategy, which yours may be different, but embedding this into your strategy might help you as well. Zeed Karmut says, can you use the Heikin-Ashi candles on big time frames to confirm local bottoms and tops? What is the biggest time frame that you can use for this purpose? Man, that's a really good question, man. In fact, confirmation for trades can keep going on for hours or days. Let me show you an example. Like, you may get in on the 10-minute and, this was our 1 hour entry, but notice how on the 10-minute, that the 10-minute got you into this trade on XRP. And now it took a while, but eventually that 1 hour got you into the trade. And eventually, there may be, look, a daily. So unfortunately, this daily candle is not going to be a momentum candle for Ripple because the price had pumped up a little bit and it went over the midpoint of the average of the open and close of the previous candle, which sounds like a mouthful, but it's a really simple concept. Because Heikin-Ashi starts at that midpoint of the previous, if the price in the current period goes up above that, even just a little bit, you are disqualifying that candle as a momentum candle. Not to say that this couldn't nuke down, it just won't be a momentum candle such as this one here, or this one here, or this one here. But, it could still be a real nice move. It just won't have that surefire, it won't be a surefire indication. Like, look at this big candle. This big candle had a top wick, and it was a massive, massive candle. So that's not, you don't want to, sometimes you got to bend the rules a little bit, but the rule is you wait for that first momentum candle to place the trade. So you're on Ripple here. And, from the top here, let's see, the first momentum candle was this one right here. So I guess you would place a massive swing trade. And this is valid stuff, guys. You can place these massive trades. And I doubt that any of you guys have the balls to hold this trade for months or whatever. But if you do, more power to you. But look, you target a 2 to 1 here. And actually, what's funny is that Ripple, look at this trade actually played out on Ripple. All you had to do was put your stop behind that swing high, and you targeted a 2 to 1, and it actually wicked down and got you out of that daily Heikin-Ashi trade setup, and you actually only had to wait 8 days. So it was like a week-long swing trade down. Actually played out really good. You had a second confirmation right here. Look, you get another momentum candle. Right here, you put your stop on that swing high. So you had 2 chances to get in there. 3 chances. Look, you could have entered right there as well. But the problem is by this point, the risk reward, you got to risk a very small amount because the distance up to that previous, or sorry, the distance from the high is very high. So that's going to mess up with your 2-to-1 rule. You know, if you catch a late move, you can't really abide by that 2-to-1 rule anymore. You may just have to take your profit at a 1-to-1. So if you're ever late to a move, take some profit at 1-to-1. So yeah, I mean, the big time frames work. If not the same, better. I mean, look at XRP back in November here after election. You get a momentum candle. And this is one of those trades where you just would beat yourself up for exiting it all, you know? Where the hell? Oh, I'm on log scale, so my position calculator is all messed up. But look, you enter a long on that first momentum candle. Right there. And this is a daily trade. So first you're going to take profit at the 2-to-1, but you only take 1/3 to 1/2 of the profit there. Then the next rule for taking profit, I would say, is if you see a red candle. That's an obvious sell signal on the daily Heikin-Ashi swing trading strategy. So the next time you see a red candle was here. But if you're using the smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator here that I just gave you guys a couple minutes ago, how about we adjust our strategy slightly to filter out any red Heikin-Ashis, any weak red Heikin-Ashis, and we wait for the black Heikin-Ashi. We wait for the smooth SHA indicator we wait for that to change trends to take profit. You would have caught this entire rip up on Ripple, and you would have been completely drama-free, sleeping good at night, knowing that your trade is doing well, simply because you abided by the Heikin-Ashi strategy. So yes, dude, big time frames are the best time frames to employ Heikin-Ashi. Just get ready to have that entire trading account on lockdown for the next however many days. You may want to up the leverage up to like 100x and use that money elsewhere or something, because that trade may take a while, man. Or it could be over the next day. You never know. It could have gotten stopped out, like I'm sure many other momentum candles did prior to this. That's why I like to look for a big momentum candle. You don't just want to long the first little, you know, this is a nice, that's a nice one. A stop loss behind the low would have worked out good for you there, actually. But can you guys see how the larger Heikin-Ashi candle is like a much better signal? Like this move right here, that was a nice big large Heikin-Ashi. That's a much stronger signal to go long than like this momentum candle here. So there's 2 types of momentum candles. There's like small, weaker ones, and then there's like larger ones that are a lot more convincing. Yeah, man. Just make sure that you're not just blindly entering on a momentum candle, any old momentum candle. Make sure you got some sort of idea backing you up. Like, you know, like I was calling this idea that Ripple may need to come back down to that previous Q4 VWAP at some point. And so if you're looking for shorts up here with that as your target, you would have gotten in on that and done really good. So make sure you have like an overarching idea for the trade based on your whatever support resistance you're using. Make sure you have an idea of where the price could go, and then just use the Heikin-Ashi to fire off the trade. So currently on Ripple, you know, we're in this large downtrend. A lot of stocks have dumped down to their year-to-date, their 2024 year-to-date VWAPs. This level here on a lot of stocks and cryptos has already been hit. If we go to Solana real quick, see how we've already passed, we've broken down, and we've lost last year's VWAP on Solana. And so I have a feeling that at some point this year we'll probably come down there. And so, you know, any red momentum candle that I see on the daily time frame, in my eyes, could be a big one, could be the big one. So maybe it is a good trade to hop in on that. Just catching up on the chats here. Surely Sound says, yo, what's up, bro? Popping in, learning some Heikin-Ashi. The Unknown says, TBH, till date, I struggle with SR, but VWAP helped me a lot. That's why I use VWAP, because it's volume weighted support and resistance. It's dynamic. It's also static, so no matter what time frame I go on, I know that that previous Q4 VWAP is at that level down there. And so you're able to kind of use VWAPs as a control variable. See how far, now I'm on the 5 minute. You got to scroll down a long ways to get to some of those VWAP supports. Or hold on. Some time frames, they don't load as good, but on like the 30 minute here, look how far down you got to go to hit that level. So that provides a good, your positioning in space. It gives you a positioning in space in the markets. That's why I like VWAPs. Fitzy says, what about momentum candles that touch VWAPs? No wick through. It touches the support. But what are the odds the next candle is up or down that you have seen? Seems VWAPs are stronger on the bigger time frames. Well, just like with any support and resistance level, which is that's what VWAPs are, with any support and resistance, you have to watch the interaction. It could be a repulsive interaction where the price retreats away from that level. It could act like a Mario Kart speed boost where the price gets only more powerful through that level because it's going to correct back down to it later. The level may not matter now, but it will matter greatly later at a later point in time. So you never really know how price is going to react around support resistance. All you can do is make an educated guess. I mean, that's what I will say, is that it's better to plan a short or a long at a support and resistance that you deem trustworthy than to place the long or the short anywhere else. So that's the point of support and resistance. It's those pit stops in the market where the market has to make a decision, and that reins it in a little bit for you and reins in the market chaos. So there is no real easy answer as to, is the price going to respect the VWAP or not? Because, you know, sometimes like you're on these smaller time frames, it's just a daily, these are just daily VWAPs. You know, it is respected as support until it's not, then it's resistance. So, you know, you don't always get those clean interactions, but when you do, you get some really great trades. Yeah, man. Fitzy says, saw some big guns on your XRP chart. Low Tick Irrigation LLC says, what's the indicator you use for VWAP? So this is called Leapfrog V3. It's an indicator that I made for my VIP so that my users, my members in the VIP can go through all their favorite charts and look at all the VWAPs set on specific dates, the starts of weeks, the starts of months, the starts of quarters. I got them all coded in this simple indicator, and it comes with the Discord. So you get my guidance, you get the indicator, you get hooked up with that, and you get the indicator all by joining my VIP group, which link in the description below. Or you could just learn how to code your own VWAP indicator, or you could use the anchored VWAP tool. So if you just trade like one chart, you could always use the anchored VWAP tool here on the left. Grab that and just place a VWAP anywhere you want. This is an amazing tool that I was using for my swing trades all last year. So if you got like there's an FOMC meeting coming up this week. So if there's a meeting, place a VWAP on that meeting to see how the price responds around that VWAP. Yeah. BK91 says, can alerts be placed on Heikin-Ashi? I believe they can. Now we go ahead and just right click the candles, add alert on Fartcoin. I haven't done this before. I don't use alerts on Heikin-Ashi, but let's see here. Price. You could probably fiddle around and figure this out. I may put out another video like on this, like a more in-depth video, but you could probably figure out how to get alerts on Heikin-Ashi. But man, I like just doing it raw, man. I love the excitement of checking the screen and you see a fresh momentum candle And it's like catching a fish, man. I don't want to automate the process of trading. I actually enjoy the process of trading. But yeah. Man, what else can I show you guys here? There was another setup that I took here. This was a Bitcoin short that we took earlier today. Similar to my XRP and Fartcoin trades here, this was the Bitcoin short. Let me go to the 1 hour. Actually, it was the 10 minute. It was the 10 minute that we caught the Bitcoin short on. So we're up here at the highs, and my VWAPs were looking like we wanted to go down to that previous weekly VWAP. You can see that since the new week began, which is right here. This is when our new week began here. Since that point, we haven't tested that previous weekly VWAP. Yes, we did test it here, but that was technically last week. So this week, we haven't tested that level. And so we're up here at the range highs. You know, we're testing these range highs, top of the range. We're trending below the monthly VWAP. That's a very important indicator for gauging our overall bias. So the bias was down. So we place the short trade on the first 10-minute momentum candle we see. So a candle with no top wick. Put our stop behind that swing high. You target 2 to 1 for your first TP. So we did take our first TP here. And we're still in this Bitcoin trade. I'll show you guys here. You can see here on Bitcoin, we did in fact enter a real trade at that level here. Now I did take some TP. You can see that this little green triangle here means that I took 1/3, a little less than 1/3 off the table at this level, just in case you get speared like a pig. You never know when that could happen. So I didn't want to get speared like a pig. So at that 2 to 1 risk reward, took some profits off the table. And we're just hoping that continues on down there to that previous weekly VWAP. Now, in this case, I want this video to be kind of timeless, but I mean, look at, since we're dealing with weekly VWAPs, weekly targets, start of the week trades, you look at the weekly Heikin-Ashi on Bitcoin, and this is all red. Look, we're in a strong red weekly Heikin-Ashi downtrend in which this new week has not gone up over the midpoint of the previous week. So this so far has the potential to be a very, very bloody week. This could be, who knows, man. It could come up. It could test the monthly VWAP, and then the weekly candle will not be as decisively bearish. But if we lose that weekly VWAP, my current short target, I believe that we may actually go lower. I may actually hold perhaps the last 1/3 of my trade if we bust through that floor at the bottom, that floor of support. Just because of this overall weekly situation being so bad, this could actually finish the move down to that previous year's year-to-date and retest Michael Saylor's average entry. So I really hope that happens so this video ages well. But even if it doesn't, that's fine. You'll see this weekly candle turn into a doji or a kind of indecisive looking candle, and we'll just have to take it from there. That means that the week after that will be the decision week, whether it's up, retesting the year-to-date as resistance, or down. But, looking at the overall trend, see the Heikin-Ashis on the weekly for Bitcoin have just turned black here on our smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator, and the regular Heikin-Ashi is red. And so this is a strong bear trend. New World Order says, I see SHA, but what is it actually called? It's called smooth Heikin-Ashi. So you go into your indicators and search smooth Heikin-Ashi by the backtest guy. Zed Carmoot says, what do you think of the overall crypto market? I would say, let's keep it Heikin-Ashi related. So, you look at Bitcoin on the Heikin-Ashi. The smooth Heikin-Ashi says we're still in an uptrend, but the regular Heikin-Ashi has indeed given us a doji, and then it hasn't given us a momentum candle, but it is indeed a bearish wick if the month closes like this. So the Heikin-Ashi on the monthly has flipped red, which is bearish. So it's not me, it's not what FloppingGroper thinks. I trade based on indications. In fact, I was selling cryptos in January over here, regardless if this goes higher or whatever, simply because our oscillator here, the NickCipher oscillator, as price went higher, the monthly oscillator had flattened out. And so as this was pinching, we had not seen the red dot yet, but I was already selling Bitcoin and telling people I was selling Bitcoin, because when you see that red dot, it's already too late. The whales and institutions and everybody's already panic dumped at that point when you get that red dot. So I've been teaching people to become the red dot. Don't wait for a monthly red dot, because by the time that thing confirms, man, who knows how much lower you could go. We're actually lucky that this red dot only caused a 20% crash, because at previous cycles in Bitcoin, we've seen this very indication give us a 50% crash. So maybe that's what's coming for us around the corner. Who knows, man? But I would say my overall take, the take of the Heikin-Ashi overall, is kind of bearish right now, at least until this Heikin-Ashi flips red and maybe you get a counter green dot to counter this red dot. But it puts you in kind of a you're in kind of a sour mood with these signals, man. It's kind of a boner killer, man. Yeah. So I guess there's one last little concept I can teach you guys before I bounce, because I don't want to keep this too long. Heikin-Ashi is simple, man. It's so simple. Like, whereas regular candles, you have all these different patterns you got to learn. Heikin-Ashi is real easy, man. You got dojis, and you got indecisive candles, and you got momentum candles. So we already discussed the momentum candle. This is the most useful candle for your trading. A candle with no top wick. So on a red candle, it's going to look like this. On a green candle, it's going to look like this moment right here. So that is like the first type of Heikin-Ashi candle that I need you to understand. The second one is a doji. So if you have a body here, whether it's like small or just like a flat line, and you've got a wick on the top or bottom, that is that means pure indecision, absolute indecision. Could go either way, but you know, the market was going down. You get that candle, it could start going up, or it could keep going down, but it could start going up. So you got to take that into account. Now, it shouldn't catch you off guard. In this particular case, it was a little unfortunate that here on the 5-minute chart, the candle that preceded that doji was a momentum candle. Usually that's not the case. Usually what you see, I think this example here is a much more realistic example of what you should expect from Heikin-Ashis, is like the downtrend establishes, but eventually, you know, see the wicks are getting lower and the bodies. A strong Heikin-Ashi trend will have a long succession of momentum candles that have bodies and wicks both going lower, or both going in that direction. The moment you see a candle where the wick doesn't go as high, that's when you should be worried. So don't wait for the green candle to invalidate your shorts. And a lot of times you may want to take profit, especially if it's at your 2-to-1 level. You may want to take profit when you see the slowing of momentum. So do you see how this is, yes, this is a red Heikin-Ashi candle. Yes, this is a momentum candle with no wick on top. But what I don't like about it, what stinks about it, is the body closed higher than the previous candle, and the wick didn't go as high as the previous candle's wick. So this right here, I would have not been surprised if a doji printed and you got an indecision candle, and then the next candle after that was a bullish momentum candle. That easily could have happened. Now, in this case, it did not, and we got a continuation down, and we got reconfirmed. The downtrend got reconfirmed, and we continued on. But this downtrend ran into issues at multiple times. Look at this one. Yes, the body went lower. Yes, there was no wick on top. So this is a momentum candle. But look at that wick. That wick right there did not go lower than the previous. So when you start to see that candle closure, you do have to be mindful that the next candle could be a doji, or it could be a full-on reversal. I mean, look at the bottom here. How this trend ended was with a momentum candle that the wick did go lower than the previous, but boom, then you got a momentum candle in the reverse. And so Just like with the market cipher waves, you know, I told you guys, become the red dot sometimes in your trading, not all the time. I mean, a lot of the time you want to let the Heikin-Ashi carry you to success. You know, like this smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator is black this whole way through, doesn't really kick you out until like this point right here, basically. But just be mindful that, you know, this candle right here is not just a momentum candle. It's less, the wick is less than the previous. So that is a sign of reduced momentum and a potential reversal incoming. So just be mindful of that, guys. Now, let me give you an example in the up direction. So in this case here, you get a nice green momentum candle here. The next candle up is what we like to see. We do see not only did the body go higher, but the wick also went higher. That's great. The next candle we see, the body went higher and the wick went higher. But I will say that look, the wick, the body itself got smaller than the previous two candles. What we want to see is bodies getting larger. If you want to hop in on a strong Heikin-Ashi trend, look over here. See how the wicks are getting larger and larger? So this is what we want to see for when you enter a Heikin-Ashi trade setup. You want to see these wicks increasing in size. You want to see the bodies going higher and the wicks going higher. And so I would say that this candle right here was perhaps the first inclination that things may possibly get hairy, simply because the candle is not bigger than the previous ones. Not always a deal breaker, but in this case, this actually was a good predeterminator of the next candle being weaker. And look, yes, it's a momentum candle, but it's a small one. It's definitely, I mean, just using your common sense, the candle that follows this definitely could be a bearish candle or an indecisive candle. The next one you get is a pure, tried and true doji. This definitely has you worried. And the next one's a doji. Then finally you get a red doji. And look, a red, not a momentum candle, because look, you got a top wick there. But this was kind of a sideways range around the 5 minutes. You get these choppy ranges. But I'm just kind of guiding you guys through the interpretation of each candle. You know, each candle is telling you something very important. So in a strong trend, you want to see bodies increasing in size. You want to see wicks pushing in that direction more and more with each closure. And you want the candle to actually close further in that direction. And if you stop seeing that, that's your first sign. That's your warning sign. And so if you are prudent, you may take some profits a little bit early instead of waiting for that spear to come and gut you. Now, this is most important on the small time frames. Now, if you are 20x gambling your whole portfolio, you're full porting on the 1 minute chart because you got to pay some debt or some shit. So you got to gamble in the markets you got to make some shit happen. You know, whatever, do what you got to do, man. I wouldn't advise that, but don't wait for the spear to close your 100x short. You unfortunately have to be leading when it comes to managing that position that's a risky, messed up position. If you see a doji, you got to get the hell out of that trade. I would go as far as to say is if you see a reduction at all in the candles, get the hell out of the trade. And so even at like this candle right here, if you were full porting and like, or if this was like a super risky trade you're in and you see the downward momentum weakening, see the wick is higher than the previous. This is a kind of a weaker Heikin-Ashi candle. The next wick after this definitely could have been a green one or a doji. And so that's a great place to get out early if you're in some sort of trade like that. Not that I'd advise that you would be, but you know, it pays to be ahead of the curve is what I'm saying. Yeah. I'll open the floor for like, you know, I got like 5 minutes left here. If you guys have questions, we'll go over it. Got a couple in the chat here. AI music is everything, says FG. Quick question. Will this VWAP and momentum candle work on SPY on the lower time frames or higher time frames? I would say that yes, it'll work on everything, bro. It works on everything. Obviously, Heikin-Ashi is gonna work better on stronger trends, things that only go up or only go down. But for the most part, it does a good job, man. They've done studies on this. Let me pull up the wiki page here. They've done studies on this. There's hard results. The results show a 72.3% chance of predicting the next day of the market using Heikin-Ashi, as opposed to only a 50% chance with standard candles. We can predict the next move of the market with up to 75% accuracy. Detailed backtesting of the Heikin-Ashi trading method using 12 years of data on each security in the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index confirmed the approach's efficacy. 66% of the equities tested outperformed the underlying index over the 12 years. So that's why my brother and I use Heikin-Ashi, because it is truly a time-tested system that actually works. And so it's not really up to me to convince you that Heikin-Ashi works or is profitable. It literally is. It's just whether or not I teach it right to you and whether or not we use it correctly, whether or not our risk management is in check. So it is indeed a time-tested indicator. That is why it's on the TradingView chart, because it's worked for many people, worked for many funds and everything in the past. It works for CryptoFace, my brother, who closes six-figure profit P&Ls like every stream. So if CryptoFace uses it and he makes millions of dollars, how come I'm not using it? How come you're not using it? You know what I'm saying? So it definitely works, but you may just want to test it out and just be mindful that the closes, the opens and closes are not the real open and close. The open of the Heikin-Ashi is simply the average of the high and low of the previous candle. And the close is the open, high, low close of the standard candle, all averaged. And so this closure right here was not the actual closure of that period. It was the open, high, low close averaged. So that can mess you up on the small time frames. You'll see it. You'll see just the wick. You'll see just the Heikin-Ashi wick come and screw you, and you get speared like a pig by a wick, as opposed to on standard candles, the body will come up and you'll get bodied. So with standard candles, if a trade goes against you, you get bodied. With a Heikin-Ashi candle, if a trade goes against you, you get wicked, because the body is kind of lagging behind visually, if that makes sense. Brando says, what settings do I use for the smooth Heikin-Ashi? So if you do want to employ a smooth Heikin-Ashi indicator, I found that it starts with a smooth length of 10. I just lowered this a bit all the way down to 1. Didn't change anything else, and it worked pretty good. So, and the wicks obviously on this indicator are not important, so I made the wicks translucent, and I changed the colors of the bodies to a color that fits my chart. Mohammed Kasim says, what about the alerts for the leapfrog indicator? You can set alerts with leapfrog. You just go and you add alert on leapfrog, condition when the price crosses the leapfrog and then the VWAP of your choice. So when we cross the weekly VWAP, you set your alert like this. So it's a condition where when the price is crossing the leapfrog VWAP. That's how you form the sentence in your mind as to how to set the alert with leapfrog. That's how I do my leapfrog alerts. Spencer Logan says, FG off topic, but do you use any bots, and how would you recommend configuring them? I don't trade with trading bots, so I'm not the person to ask. Crypto Bull Zone says, good stuff, FG. Haven't been able to chill and watch some OG MC traders in a while. It was refreshing to hear your Heikin-Ashi perspectives. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, bro. Thanks for popping in. New World Disorder says the three amigos agree. All right, I think that's pretty much it, guys. So to wrap it up, Heikin-Ashi, it's a real useful tool, not just for swing trading, but also for scalp trading, as long as you're mindful of how the data is calculated. Educate yourself on that, refresh yourself on that, and I think you're good to go. If you like the standard candles, you can always employ smooth Heikin-Ashi indicators to get the best of both worlds. I showed you guys how to form actual trade setups using the Heikin-Ashi. We went into the history of it a little bit. What else more is there to even teach you guys? It's a oversimplified candlestick. I don't need to teach you all these candlestick patterns. I don't need to teach you all this complex shit that I would have to with regular candles. So Heikin-Ashi makes the job easy for me, man. It doesn't have to be that long of a stream. This is the sauce right here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this class. Take this information, integrate it. Don't do exactly what I do. I'm teaching you how I do this so you can do it for yourself and you don't need my ass anymore. But if you still want to follow me, then smash the like and subscribe. You can follow me over on Twitter at FloppingGroper here, where I give insights, commentary, and all stuff like that. You can get my VIP if you go to my WAP, link in the description. And last but not least, NickCipher, code Jason Stratham. Code Jason Stratham, that's how you spell it right there. 50% off NickCipher. One more day. If you're on the fence, it's your last day to get that deal. And I hope you guys like this video. You guys have a good one.